Hey there, I'm Beverly Sartain, and this is the Holistic Coach Legacy Podcast, where you get support in being an impactful and confident coach. In today's episode, we are on part 2 of a 6-part series where we are going to be listening to a 6-week program called the Holistic Wellbeing Routine Program. And my intention is to take you through a 6-week process so you can hear what a program sounds like and you can have your own learnings about how you might set something like this up. Another intention that I have is that you get to hear someone who is applying the 4 levels that we teach in our Holistic Coach Certification Program, which are the mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. So in today's episode, you are going to hear how Mary is applying the emotional level to her outcome of becoming a stronger leader. I hope that you find this helpful. Thanks for being here. Welcome, Mary. It's so good to be here with you today.
Oh, thank you, Beverly. It's very good to be here, as always, with you.
Awesome. Well, I'm really looking forward to us jumping into the 4 levels together this week. And before we do that, I wanted to check in with you around any wins that you might share in service to holding yourself accountable.
Yeah. Actually, I was going to say 2, but now I have 3. Right after our call last time, I had some signs in my readings that came forward, and each of them were different. And it was like, no matter which resource I picked up, whether it was my daily reading or something I saw on social media, it was like always like in my face on a sign of have faith, let go of doubt, trust in God, believe you will have it. That's what it was. And I just kept writing them down because I thought, this is so weird. I felt like on cloud 9. And so it was very exciting for that win. And then during all of that going on, my other win was I received a discovery call from someone who reached out to me. And she's like, I only have one question. And we like really hadn't dug in a little bit. And she said, how much, or no, not how much, how do I pay you? And I'm like, well, that's an easy answer. And then lastly, my icing on the cake was seeing my grandson this past weekend, who lives in another state. So yeah.
Wonderful. Those are lots of good things going on for you, and acknowledging you for being open to receiving the messages. It's always nice when it feels like, ask and you shall receive. Mm-hmm. And when you receive, it feels really good, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing all that. I also wanted to check in with you. I remember during our initial session, you said you wanted to be present to the coaching conversation and let me know day of which level you wanted to work on in service to stepping into greater leadership for yourself or stronger leadership for yourself. So with that being said, which level, the mental, emotional, spiritual, or physical, would you like to focus on today?
What comes forward for me is emotional, because that is like the heart and soul of who I am, but it's like, it can be something to help me or keep me from moving forward. So I think if I were to get my emotional level in a good spot, I think I just know that I would feel even better as a leader and a better example.
Nice. And when you say get it to a good spot, what does that mean for you?
Well, I tend to acknowledge, like, I become aware of whatever emotion is coming forward. I acknowledge it, and I realize, yes, okay, now I acknowledge it. Now I need to move on. But that's where I get stuck sometimes, depending. Where when I'm at home by myself, that seems easy for me to do. But then if a loved one says something, and this isn't just about my husband at all, but it's someone I care about or in my family that says something that they maybe observe, and they don't even see me every day. But it gets in my head, and then it messes with my emotions. And then all of a sudden I start questioning, and I think, why? Like, I've been on a really good roll here. Like, how did I just let this person get in my head? And then the emotional part comes in. It's like I put so much emphasis on it instead of just moving on. Like, okay, you became aware of it, you acknowledge it, now move on, Mary. Nope. And that's where I feel stuck.
Well, thank you for sharing your process with me.
Yeah.
There's a very strong correlation that I'm hearing between the mental and the emotional level, because you kept saying like something gets into my head and then it impacts my emotions. So that's great. We're a great start to our session today. You know, today we're going to be really diving into the focus on the emotional level and how it relates to you being that stronger leader that you envision for yourself.
Sounds wonderful.
Yeah, and just a reminder that, you know, we're working on these 4 levels because it's really helpful to have a well-rounded practice or routine to support yourself in stepping into stronger leadership.
Yeah.
And when we work on the 4 levels, we truly set ourselves up for success, because you've already identified that your mental and your emotional level are very strongly connected.
Yes.
And so we can't just focus on one without really looking at the other and really all of ourselves. So that's a really great insight that you've already had.
Yeah. And I guess I didn't realize until hearing it back from you how those two are really connected. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What else comes up for you when you think about either that connection between the mental and the emotional, or simply the emotional as it pertains to being a stronger leader?
I think they really do go hand in hand. Because when you're out of your head and you're speaking from your heart, your thoughts and your emotions they're like in line. Like, yes, I mean, my strongest quality is being empathetic. And so that to me is that's just who I am. I'm compassionate and empathetic. And so like that emotional part is easy, but then the mental part, so they do kind of work together. So I don't know what I was thinking, but they definitely work together. And I think that if both of those two are strong, then I can handle anything that comes my way.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Yeah. So for the sake of our time together today, what would you like to focus on that would be really valuable for you and help you feel very strong on this emotional level as it pertains to being a stronger leader?
If there was a way we could process when something comes in and I acknowledge it, or so I become aware of it, I acknowledge it, how do I let that go without it taking up more time and energy that isn't needed?
Okay. So you're wanting to work through a process. And I love that you've already created your own process of awareness, acknowledgement, and then let go.
Mm-hmm.
Let go.
Yeah.
So that's really great that you already have come up with your own process, and we can certainly maybe talk about some examples or work through what that might look like in a real life example. But if you could let go of that thought that gets planted and feel fully strong in your emotions, what would that really do for your leadership?
Oh, I would feel like I am on top of the mountain. I just feel like I could say anything and speak from my heart and say, okay, this is an example. I was down there. I questioned, but look at where I am today.
Okay. And if you were at that place where you could speak and feel strength, what would that do for you?
I think that would just keep allowing me to build my business, build a brand by helping other people through my strengths and how I've overcome so many of these different levels.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. And what do you think your emotions need to be like in order to be that strong leader that you really want to be?
Sometimes when I'm going through something, I'm laughing, but it's really not funny, but sometimes my emotions get the best of me and it stops my thought process. And I just need to know like how, and I know it's possible because like I can do this. Like last week when all these signs were happening and these winds, it's like I'm on this higher level internally. And like somebody could spit in my face and it wouldn't matter. Like I'm just internally on this high.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where I want to be. And I think that's, to me, being that strong leader is not allowing those, like almost like the broken emotion coming forward. And I know that that's still part of healing, but and I'm not saying that I wouldn't still like shed tears or something when I'm sharing a story. I don't think that makes me a bad leader by no means, but I just want to do it where I can share that story, show some emotion, but then move on. Kind of like those, like, let go,
Mm-hmm. So great explanation. And it, again, just honoring the fact that you've really picked up that there's a mental process that happens and then that impacts you emotionally. And I really appreciate you pulling from and referencing this experience that you had where you just felt like really on fire and really connected and it felt like nothing could really get in the way of you putting yourself out there and moving forward in your business, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
And so I had a question that I wanted to ask that I was curious, like, is it possible to not be impacted ever by something that somebody says? What do you think about that?
No, it's not impossible. I mean, I think we all get impacted by something, but it's our response. So instead of reacting, it's how I respond to it. And that's where the leadership comes from.
Got it. Okay.
Amen. That's it.
That's wonderful. I'm glad I asked that question because I was curious about that, wondering is it really like we're going to be affected sometimes by things that people say, but what you just said really, really helps me understand more about what you're talking about, that you want to be able to respond.
Yes.
the way that you want to respond versus feeling like you're reacting from that brokenness or from your wound. Right. So what do you think when you hear me say that back to you?
Yes, that's it. That's it in a nutshell. It's concentrating and being intentional about my response. So then what does that mean? When someone says something that's impacting me emotionally or mentally, I guess that's what I need to practice is what is that response? Do I need to take time, step back? Do I need to take a breath? I guess it depends on what it is,
Awesome. And so for our time together today, like I already hear you starting to work through the process, which I know is what you said that you wanted to get. What specifically would you be leaving with that we would know, yes, Mary hit her target today around this?
If I could leave today with maybe some options of how to learn to respond and not react, or maybe just a couple or a few ways of teaching myself a better response system.
Wonderful. So we'll work on creating a couple of different options of how you're responding. And then that way you can try those out and experiment and see how those work for you. And if you had those better ways of responding, again, how does this connect with this higher vision you have for yourself of being a stronger leader?
Because I feel like I'm envisioning this as you're saying this, is this person saying, this just happened recently, obviously. And this person saying something and saying how I am, and I got quiet. And so if I came back with a response that would be a powerful, not derogatory, not negative response in a positive way, that to me is me as a leader, not what's the word I'm trying to think of, like not responding the way this person wants me to.
Yeah, that's a powerful strategy. So really tuning in with how does Mary the leader want to respond to this versus maybe Mary who's connected to her wound, or the verbiage you used was brokenness.
Yeah.
Right. How does that feel?
That feels really empowering to me. I love that. I wrote that down. Like, how does Mary the leader respond? Because lately, ever since this happened, I was like, okay, I'm not going to react. I'm going to think about this. So my response was to be quiet. But to me, a leader would have responded in a very intentional way. And so I love that. And definitely not going to, that's one of my options. I'm going to be intentional this week about asking that question if it presents itself. Like, how would I respond as a leader, and see what comes forward.
Awesome. So that's one option that you have. I also wanted to bring forward just the process that you came up with, which was awareness, acknowledgement, and then letting go. Yes. So when we think about that in terms of maybe the incident that you had, what else comes up for you around that this process that would be useful for you?
The first thing that comes to my mind, actually hearing you say it and then just looking at the words, is being aware of what was said. Okay, it's in my head. I get it. I'm aware of it. I acknowledge where I'm feeling it in my body. And then letting go, like, that doesn't serve me. So, like, why do we need to discuss it? Why do we need to have any type of conversation? Because no matter what is said or what comes out of the conversation, there's no point in it. So that to me is like that letting go. Like, okay, I don't need to discuss it anymore. So I need to just let that go.
And what's your insight about what makes it hard for you to let it go?
This other person just bringing it up and bringing it up. So that's where it's like, okay, I can say that I'm going to let it go, but then it's like I have to say something. And that's where I get stuck. Like if I were to me, that leader would say, what would that leader say, Mary? It's almost like I want to say, like, it's unfortunate that you feel that way, but that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
Or that's not me.
Mm-hmm.
And
what's important about responding, Mary?
I think it goes back to feeling like I never had a voice for so many years. And I feel like if I have that response, then I have a voice. It's not their opinion or it's like me setting the tone, I guess, or defending myself, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it goes back to feeling like I was growing up, I was the one that was, unfortunately, I grew up where kids were seen, not heard. Like you're in a room, you just sit down and shut up.
Mm-hmm.
And so as I heal through everything that I've gone through in my own life, it's like, now I'm going to have a voice.
That's nice. So leaders have voices.
Mm-hmm.
You can give yourself a voice.
Yeah.
And can I share something else that I'm picking up as well?
Yes, please.
I'm also picking up this importance around not taking on other people's thoughts or emotions and having to be responsible for them for some reason.
Yeah.
What comes up for you when you hear me say that?
That really speaks volumes. And that's exactly what I get caught up doing. And I'm aware that I don't always do that, because I've even said that as a coach with my clients, asking that similar question is I ask, like, why is it important for you to know the answer? Or why is it important to engage in that conversation? And so it's taking on my own advice or my own question, with my own personal life. And I think that's where, we can all get stuck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
This seems like the next level for you when it comes to your emotional level and the mental level. Is, I can hear, as a leader, I can hear somebody else's perspective, but I don't have to take it on or do something with it.
Yeah.
Even if those people are close to me in some sort of way.
Yeah.
I can let people have their own perspective or opinion. and I don't have to do anything with it. What do you think about that?
Yes, I love that. That's very true. So may I ask, do you, like, if someone is asking you a question and it's their perspective, is it something of that you just sit in silence, or do you give like your opinion, or you respond?
Well, I think that that's why I was asking the questions I was asking. And I think you came up with that you wanted to have a voice,
Yeah.
and but I think, you always have that choice point of, do I want to respond to this or not?
Yeah.
And if I want to respond, I have that right to give myself a voice, so
Yeah.
that's always there. Can I share a paradigm that I really like, that I know
Yeah.
I've told you before?
Mm-hmm.
Is this paradigm about, that feedback is just information. Feedback's just information. That's all it is. And you get to decide what feels truthful for you and what you can utilize. And you also get to decide what you let go of without judgment,
Yes.
if you so choose.
Mm-hmm.
No. And so what do you think about that paradigm?
I absolutely love that. I'm putting that in my options. And I'm going to say that, feedback's just information, along with, how would Mary the leader respond, and becoming aware of it, acknowledge it, and let go. It's when you said that feedback's just information, instantly what came forward was of someone, from my past saying, no, this is how it's supposed to be. And so that's why all this stuff is it's coming forward, because I'm healing, I'm healing deeper each new level of everything that I'm going through. And I know that it's just going to be an ongoing process, and it's so beautiful. But you're right. It's like that healing. And that's why it's so important for me to be this leader with a voice, because I never had one before.
It's powerful. Yeah, it's really powerful, because I can see you being such a demonstration to other people who are learning how to use their voice.
Yeah.
I mean, you get to be that example of somebody who is using their voice.
Yes. And I do. I feel so like, I don't know, every week something happens and I feel more empowered, more comfortable. And then that's why I think these things are coming forward, because I am. It's still healing. And it's like, oh, wait a second. You thought you were strong.
Here's another opportunity to test it out.
Right?
Right.
Every day is an opportunity. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So with these options and strategies that you're working through, what else are you discovering about yourself?
I've said this to my kids for years. Every day is a school day, because we are always learning. And this for me is learning about myself. Like, it's one thing to learn something like as a coach and be out there to help other people. But like you've said so often, you can't help someone else until you help yourself. And through this process, it enlightens me that I'm learning more and more about myself. And the more I learn, the more excited and empowering I feel.
That's great. So taking that excitement and empowerment, what might be some steps that you could take from now until we chat again to support yourself in the emotional level around stronger leadership?
I think for me, because I'm a visual person, so I'm going to write down these responses. So it's kind of my own little vision board. as my reminders, and maybe even add them as part of my reading every morning, because that's very helpful for me. Because the deeper I am in my reading, the deeper it stays into myself. And yeah, so that's an option that I'm going to do this week.
That's great. And I love it because it's also incorporating the spiritual level and the physical level of like actually, you know, doing the reading and sitting down and taking the time and connecting on a spiritual level. So you can see how these are all intertwined.
Yes.
But I love that you're utilizing all of the levels here in support of just feeling really strong emotionally so that you can be the best leader that you can be.
Yes.
And let me ask you this, like if you thought of taking a larger step, like an even bigger step, what might that look like for you?
That larger step would be me in front of a large group of people and sharing a story and helping other people feel like they're not alone, that they can do this. So it's like, heck, if I can get through all that I have and stand up here, then heck, you can too. But that would be a big leap for me.
How far away does that feel for you right now?
It doesn't feel too far. I would say it feels like months, not years.
Cool.
So it doesn't feel like days. It feels more like months, not years.
What do you think about that?
It actually is exciting. I mean, I guess a little nervous, but I've really been intentional lately on just letting everything organically happen. I'm not pushing anything. And I really believe that that's why I saw so many signs. And so I don't know what it is. I have a really good feeling that something is going to happen in months that will put me in that position.
Great. Well, that's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you mentioned kind of what you would do externally with your reading, and I am curious if there is anything internally that needs to shift for you so that you feel like you can emotionally let go of what you have an awareness and acknowledgement around in order to be that stronger leader.
The first thing that comes to my mind as you say that is meditation. I was doing that for a while and I have not done that. So I would definitely need to add that. And maybe not set myself up for failure and start maybe 5 minutes and then add more later, because just like exercise, I'm like, oh, I need 30 minutes. And I think that because it's been so long that I need to start small. So thank you for that reminder. I'm going to add 5 minutes of just silence, meditation, and just seeing what comes forward.
What does the sitting in the silence and meditating do for you emotionally?
Oh, it clears my mind. It just puts me at ease. I feel like air moving in a room.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And another mind emotion connection for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a strong connection there between the mind and the emotions for you.
Yeah.
So we'll know that like if one area is feeling stronger, probably the other one's feeling stronger for you too.
Yeah.
So anything else that we need to talk through as it pertains to getting you stronger emotionally for your leadership?
No, I think this is like a really good start. Because even the spiritual part it's like all part of my practice. And it's funny, asking like, which one do we want to work on? And emotional was the first one because I was feeling emotionally internally about the situation that just happened a couple days ago. And so that, of course, is why I gravitated that. But it's interesting as we go through this process, how, like you said, all four of these levels really play such an important role on everything that we do.
Yeah, they really are connected in such a strong way. So I'm really glad that we're talking through them. And as you get stronger emotionally this week and try on some of these options and strategies, who might you share some of your learnings with that would feel like a good accountability for you?
I'll definitely share them with my husband, but if you don't mind, I would like to just drop you a note and just kind of like, I've done this. And I think for me, because my husband's just too nice that way, and they're like, oh, that's great, but I need that accountability with someone. I do have one friend that I could just reach out and ask her to be my accountability partner. Because I really think that's important. Yeah.
What about it?
That having an accountability partner is important because it's easy to say, yeah, I'm going to do this. But when you have an accountability partner, then it's more real. And I think just mentally, you're just more intentional about it. Because you don't want to let yourself down. You don't want to let the other person down. Like, oh, but I also know that if I didn't do something, I'm certainly not going to beat myself up over it. I'm just going to be truthful about it and say, hey, I said I was going to do this 3 times and I only did it 2,
That's good to hear. I'm glad that you're using that empathy and compassion that you have for others and using it for yourself too. I think that's such a beautiful thing. Yes. Great. Well, those are some good ideas that you have there around the accountability piece. So would it be helpful to share a takeaway from our conversation today to ground the session?
Yes. I have to say, just the fact of talking about leadership having voices. Before, mentally, I used to think like I couldn't speak and now I'm going to speak, where that sounds almost like, I would say, like angry or defensive and negative. And looking at it as a leader has a voice sounds so empowering, so much more positive. And that's who I want to be all the time. And, as life takes us, that's just been a really big takeaway. And the feedback's just information. I think focusing on that really allows me to go back to acknowledging, having that awareness, acknowledging it. And that's my letting go piece.
Yes.
Yeah. That's my letting go piece.
I love that. Yeah.
Mhm.
You don't have to own somebody else's feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really powerful. Thank you.
Yeah. I'll be curious to see how these strategies and options play out for you. And you of course can definitely message me and let me know how they went when you try them on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I'm
that's
excited.
really great.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So anything else that needs to be acknowledged or shared?
No, I want to acknowledge you because you have such a beautiful gift of digging in deeper through your questions. And I am always amazed at what comes forward when I start thinking, okay, we might be talking about something like this, but then it goes into such a deeper level that I really, really love this. And one of my clients this last week said, coaches are essential because you dig in such a way that it helps you to recharge each session.
That's a good testimonial.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So I love it. So I'm like, I'm going to be using that. She said, that's good. That's okay.
Right.
It just made me so happy.
Can I share something that I had somebody just recently say?
Yes, please.
I was doing a podcast interview with somebody, and she's a therapist, and she said that coaching has allowed her to do this work that she loves to do for longer because she feels like it doesn't burn her out or stress her out the way that therapy can. And I thought that was so profound, that coaching facilitates a space also for the coach to recharge and experience just, good energy and insights and awareness and all the stuff that the coachee experiences too. So, yeah.
I think it's so important. And obviously I didn't realize this either with myself, but I've learned that coaching process is so important for anybody and everybody. I mean, you yourself, you have a coach, we all have coaches. And so it's so profound to know that they're just guiding us through those next steps. And it's important. Do you want to get to the next steps or do you want to stay stagnant?
Well, this has been such a joy
Yes.
to be with you. And thank you so much for your acknowledgement. And I, of course, reflect back to you that we go as deep as you go. And so I'm very grateful that you're always very open, Mary, to the process and to exploring and to insights. And so you make it very, very fun and enjoyable for me too. Yeah.
Good.
So
thank you very much for this opportunity.
Yeah, you're very welcome. So is this a good place for us to pause today?
It is. Yes. Thank you.
Wonderful, dear. Thanks for being with me.
You're welcome.
If there's only one thing that you take away from today's episode, I hope it's the application of the 4 levels and how the emotional level can be used to actually support somebody in reaching their ultimate goal. And if you would like to learn how to coach or how to create your own program, please check out our programs page where you can see our Holistic Coach Certification Program, and you can also see our Holistic Coach Business Startup course. Many blessings to you, and thank you so much for listening and being here and being a part of this journey. Please remember that the Holistic Coach Legacy is a path, not a destination. So stay course, keep moving forward, and surround yourself with people who are going to lift you up.